This is C-Level Leadership. I'm Darren Mell. I spent most of my career leading and hiring and working alongside people who actually keep organizations running. Not from the mountaintop, but at sea level. This podcast is about leadership as it's lived, not how it's branded. We'll talk about work, pressure, people, integrity, and the quiet decisions that matter long before anyone's watching. No slogans, no hype, just leadership the way it really works. Thanks for listening. Hi, I'm Darren Mell. Welcome to C-Level Leadership. I've spent most of my career leading and hiring and working alongside people who actually keep organizations running, not from the mountaintop, but at sea level. This is a podcast. It's about leadership as it's lived, not how it's branded. We'll talk about work, pressure, people, integrity, and the quiet decisions that matter long after anyone's watching. No slogans, no hype, just leadership the way it really works. Thanks for listening. And as I said, C-level, that's SEA level instead of the letter C level. Cute, huh? This landed in my head and it won't leave. And 35 years of being a participant in the working world and 20 of them as a leader from a manager level, but never any higher than a director level. That's all I've ever been. No C level for me at this point in my career. So I'm directing myself to put my leadership thoughts into this podcast as well as down on paper. And for me, it's been an epiphany of 35 years of working in corporate America. And after hundreds of interviews, hundreds and hundreds of associates and salespeople that I've hired and onboarded, and thousands of hours of quarterly conversations, it all came to an inflection point for me. My head was full of ideas on leadership from all the hours of human interaction, and that's what I hope to bring you as fellow leaders out there in this community. An inspiration, whether you're a current or you're a new leader. When you think about it statistically, very few leaders ever climb their way all the way up to C level, and that's the letter C. In a study that was done in 2021 by Southern University, the odds of becoming a CEO at a U.S.-based company are 1 in 135,000. Now, that's better odds than a Powerball lottery ticket, but it's still a long shot. So I'm not here to squash dreams, as my focus will be on your style of leadership. And when I refer to the letter C level leadership, I'm not knocking all C level title people as bad leaders. I've worked alongside some very good leaders who climbed to those ranks of the letter C level, or worked their way up there. And I've worked along a lot of them, and they've been excellent. For myself, I knew I was going to be potentially testing the job market, and I thought most interviews ask you, what is your interview or your leadership style? And I thought I better come up with something. And I do live near the beach in the Tampa Bay area of Florida. And for me, it hit me one day, C level, SEA level. And that's how it was born. So, when you think about being at C level with another human, it means that you're all at the same level when you come together. Hierarchy is known and respected in the workplace. And however, the leader, they've created a culture where all the employees truly feel safe, that they belong, and that they matter. And it's more of a mindset, but the tone is set from the beginning by the leader, where the culture thrives, in my opinion, because your team focuses not only getting the job done, but getting it done to the best of their abilities. And also, fear is not a part of the workplace, nor is it a style of leadership. And what I've seen is that your morale is high with your employees because they feel like they have a voice and that they're supported by everyone on the team, from the leader to the associates. For those of you out there listening that are a current leader, take a moment back to that day when you found out that you landed your first role in leadership. Pretty thrilling, right? I remember it as well. It was 2004, and I was promoted from a quota-carrying outside sales representative to a district sales manager of an inside sales team of about 15 individuals. And for me, and I'm sure for you, after the thrill of landing the leadership role faded, a large dose of fear set in. And it was the same for myself. What was I going to do to lead this team? Many times when we take over an existing team, it's due to underperformance. So the previous manager was let go, and it's your job to clean it up, assess talent, and chart a new path forward to success. And being that it was my first leadership role, I had what they call concepts of a plan, but nothing in writing about my leadership style or like the coveted mission statement like Tom Cruise had in Jerry Maguire. So leaders out there, think about yourself as a leader. What is your style? What is your plan? Do you have a personal brand? Is your team aware of your brand? If you've been a leader for several years, you have a brand whether you know it or not. One of the things that I will cover in future podcasts is about skip level meetings. Skip level meetings will help you to truly hear what your brand is all about as a leader. And like I said, I will dive into that later. And for myself, like I said, spent 35 years of work, 20 as a leader. For 10 years, I specifically worked as a sales development leader where I exclusively hired recent college graduates over the 10 years. And I have a lot of thoughts on that for people building their career and leading new to career, because I did over 500 interviews and hired over 100 of basically the 22 to 26 age group. And that gave me a good insight of what good looks like to grow careers there. We'll cover that in future podcasts as well. But overall, for me, it's time, nostalgia, self-reflection, and a drive to help other leaders has helped me to design what I call the SEA, C-level leadership plan. And my goal is to provide you with a playbook that you can refer to at any time during your leadership career, and as well as a community for all of us to open up. I really decided to write a lot of this because it was almost a cry for, does anybody care anymore? Does anybody work on their craft? I mean, most of us as leaders, we don't really even get any real training other than what we put into ourselves. So the one thing about me, I bill myself on all my books, it says by Darren Mel, average human being. I'm not a CEO. I'm not a 1 million plus follower, as you can tell. This is my first podcast. I'm on YouTube, nor am I a billionaire. Where does my street cred come from in leadership? For me, my credibility comes from the countless hours that I've engaged in conversations with the people I've led over the years. And guess what? I took notes. So most of my work experience has been in corporate America, and as a people leader, never higher than a director level, about 85% of my time as a leader has been in conversations with people that I've interviewed, people that I've hired, people that I've onboarded, people I've had one-on-one conversations with, people that I've had tough conversations with, people that I've had to terminate, which has not been many. And I'll cover that later when we talk about interviewing in future podcasts. And then joyfully, people that I've promoted. When you think about it, if you are a leader, you spend so much of your time in conversations, and they're so freaking important that I'll break down quarterly conversations as well in future podcasts into their own section. I'll show you the proper way, how to set them up for both you as well as the employees, so that both parties walk away from the meeting inspired and with clear, understandable priorities in place. Like I said earlier, based on the odds listed above on your chances of becoming a CEO, I'd like to offer you in this podcast series is not only a perspective at C-level SEA, but also a view from middle management. When you think about it, supervisors, managers, and directors in the working world spend most of their time with people. And as a leader, I've said before that our job is an ongoing morale check-in, daily, weekly, hourly, or monthly. You as a leader and your ability to feel the pulse of your team and be honest with yourself is your number one job. Knowing what you can and cannot control will help you divide your time in a way that allows you to hit the sweet spots that improve in performance the most on your teams. And also, you think about it, depending on the company that you work for, as a leader, you probably have at least, as a minimum, 5 associates that roll up to you on the org chart. At one point during my leadership career, I had 22 associates that pointed me onto the org chart. Being responsible for that number, or anywhere from up to 5 or 30 or 40 personalities, it's no easy task. This means your time is at a premium. The more organized you are with your leadership plan, the fewer headaches you're going to have, let's face it. And think of it this way, mid-level management, like it or not, all of us out there, we're the sounding board for the associates who report to you in the org. The presentations at the letter C levels executive leaders give that cascade down to your associates, sometimes they can leave them frustrated. Maybe they'll put a new policy in place that everyone knows is terrible. The middle managers are us are the only ones who hear and feel the venting from the employees. Many who will be associates on your team. My recommendation is hear them out. Do the best you can. Let them vent. Ask them to bring suggestions with their venting. Unfortunately, in the middle, there's not a whole lot that you can do because you're getting the pressure from both sides. I wanted to do this podcast because I wanted to do it specifically for the middle and from the middle, and that's me. Specifically, I'm talking about middle management, and I see all of you out there that are listening right now. We're all part of that special group of people, and it's a huge number of people. And you know who it is and who we are? The average. I've said this before. I was a C to C plus student, pretty much the same in high school and college. I played the guitar. I'm a rabid 80s hair metal fan. Ask anybody, they'll tell you. Played in a band for a while. I loved it. I love music. I'm average, though. I'm average on the guitar. But that doesn't take any away to the love, the peace, the creativity, or the passion that I feel for it when I play it. It feels like a new painting every time I play. And so if that is a grade C, then I say bring it on. And also as leaders, if caring about others more than I do the bottom line never moves me up any higher than I am right now, then score me another C. The word work, when we hear it, a lot of times it typically has somewhat of a negative disposition when you hear it. I hear some people say they love their work. Some people hate their work. So very, early in my leadership career, I used to always stop and say to myself, why does work have to be so boring and robotic? If we all need to be here to earn a living, isn't there any reason why we can't have fun and laugh along the way to make the best of it? Meaning, let's get to know each other a little better on a personal level so that understanding can move to empathy. Really that's where gratitude lies, and good times and good feelings begin. Another point in leadership, and I'm sure you all know of this, is narcissism. It's quite common in the world of leadership. That type of leader can run into problems as they believe that in their minds they're doing a great job. And those who report to them typically feel differently, but the narcissistic leader won't really hear their input. It becomes a perpetual state of madness. It can eat you up inside if you let it. So in this podcast, I'm going to dedicate an episode to give you guidance how to ensure your mindset is in the right place to deal with those challenging narcissistic personalities. My style works for me, but I understand that it isn't for everyone. I'm more here to open up a community to all of you to hear what you say and how you handle things with your coworkers and the people that you lead. I think it's really important as a leader to be honest with yourself. To be a true leader, you really have to care about all human beings, treating them all at the same level. If you can achieve that, then I say congratulations, welcome to C-level leadership, and that's SEA. Whether you're a new or a seasoned leader, we all have a workplace brand that we're known for. Your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. Ask yourself this as you're listening to this. Do you know what it is? Have you ever asked for it? I'm going to cover the importance of personal brand as well. And even if your brand's taken a hit over time, follow the suggestions I'll provide. It'll help you put hopefully a shiny new sheen on your brand and elevate it. And then, we're going to dig in on C-level leadership and give you what I look at as the way that I define and how I lead people. And lastly, a lot of people are like, why is this so important now? My final point here before I wrap up is leadership didn't get harder because people became weaker. It got harder because people became exhausted. I don't know if you feel this way, but over the last several years, the working world has shifted in the ways that it's exposed something that many leaders weren't prepared for. Leadership is no longer about proximity, authority, or control. It's about trust, emotional intelligence, and the ability to lead people you don't always see, hear, or fully understand. C-level leadership, my plan was born from that reality. This book and a podcast is not about titles. It's not about corner offices or command and control thinking. It's about leadership as it's actually lived in conversations, decisions, missed cues, emotional moments, and everyday interactions that quietly determine whether people feel seen or silenced. At C-level, true C-level leadership looks different. It's human. It's imperfect. It requires empathy without weakness, accountability without ego, and clarity without cruelty. It demands emotional infrastructure just as much as procedural infrastructure, which I will cover in future podcasts. This podcast, we're all navigating mostly hybrid teams, digital communication, generational differences, and rising expectations for authenticity and psychological safety, often without a playbook. And many of us are doing the best with an outdated model that no longer matches the reality of modern work. This book's and this series of podcasts I put together is to help bridge that gap. My style of leadership doesn't offer gimmicks or shortcuts. It offers perspective. It challenges leaders to look inward before leading outward and to understand that influence is earned through consistency, presence, and trust, not volume and authority. So that is what I want to do just today, to introduce myself to all of you. And I hope that we can create a community here of people that understand that if we lead people, we're in the people business. So shouldn't your leadership hand put people at the center of it? And I really appreciate it, you listening on C-Level Leadership, and we'll talk to you next time. Thanks for listening. This has been C-Level Leadership with Darren Mel, Average Human Being.